and that's why we're calling it the Corral Call this time. And so, yeah, it's going to be a good one. We'll have our guest introduced here just in a moment, but uh, we have been talking about it a little bit. You can see our backgrounds. Dr. J, say hello to the people while we're here.
Hello, everyone. I love these corral calls, Mark. And I'm going to steal a little bit of your thunder with Generations Tell the Stories. We didn't know that God would have us on this journey with Oz Hillman and otherwise, but we have been doing this for some time, having people on the corral call to share. And I don't know if they knew it or not, but that's what they've been doing. Tell the story of how God has worked in your life and help you to impact people in the marketplace.
100%. And that's the whole point of generations is the stories that God has done throughout the generations and continue to tell those. And it's just an exciting time because of what's happening in the world. I mean, it's for those that may not know, it's Rosh Hashanah is yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So new beginnings, a new year. God is moving, and we're excited today to host a new friend, and his name is Arnold Murray. He's going to be talking to us about making impact. How are you doing today, Arnold?
All right, I am doing fantastic and so excited to be on the call with everybody.
Yeah, so Arnold and I ran into each other on Alignable. If you've heard of that, it's kind of like a LinkedIn type of platform. And actually, Arnold, we had Tanya, who I think you work with closely on. Uh,
Yeah,
she was just here a few weeks ago. So Arnold
nice.
works with Tanya. That was a great time as well. And we're going to get to know a little bit about you, Arnold. So we're talking about bivocation. So it's not just like having a job and I just do this there and that over there, ministry. So how did we get on this journey? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, first thing, actually, before I start, I want to just thank you both for having me on the podcast on the show. Um, when I started to tell you a little of this when we were checking this, but when I saw and I was just viewing your website and seeing some of your and I saw your launch for for the 1 million. I was like, man, I need to meet those guys. I need to talk to those people because I think discipleship is something that is lacking in the world today, and lots of people, even those who have been in the faith for a long time, they've heard of discipleship. They know the concept. They know Jesus had disciples, but if you really ask people directly, nobody had like, have you ever been discipled? They'd be like, no. And I mean, there's this huge disconnect. So when I saw you all and people in the marketplace having this kind of heart and this desire, I knew, hey man, I got to connect with these guys. So just a little bit of that story before I jump in. So to tell you a little about myself, I am a bivocational leader, right? And I really like to start introducing myself though as with my spiritual identity, which is I am an encourager of the faithful. That is my spiritual identity. That's why God created me to encourage faithful people. And you find faithful people all over the place, where they're in churches, they are in businesses, they are in communities, and faithful people often go overlooked. And so one of the things that for even a space like this that God's created for all of us is so faithful people can know that you're not alone. Just so like when I just going back to my story, when I saw you guys doing this message and sharing the concept of discipleship and having a vision, and moving forward, like I was like, hey man, I'm not alone. There's other people with the same heart, and so that's a little bit about the connection. So, but in terms of my background, my background is in corporate education, corporate training, specifically customer education and sales. I grew up in North Carolina. My parents, I'm a third generation minister. My parents and my dad was a pastor, so it means I'm a PK. And one of the interesting things we may get to a little later is my dad actually built a church, our church. And my dad built this church out of his own pocket with his own money, and it was literally behind my house. So I could be in my bed, and 60 seconds later, I could be sitting on a pew in the church. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. But anyway, just an incredible story. But that's a testament to the legacy and the spiritual legacy that I've come from. with my dad, who was also a bivocational minister. And but I had my mom and dad were married for 30 some odd years before they passed away. I have 7 brothers and sisters, and all of us know the Lord. And so again, there's a lot to the story. I think I just want to sum it up by saying, again, I've been following the Lord for a number of years, and God has done so many great things in my life, and brought me here to have a desire where I feel like I'm called to impact the marketplace as well as fulfill my spiritual calling. And I hope we'll talk about, a little bit today how that all fits together. But I really want to encourage faithful people. I want to help see the body of Christ grow. I wanted to see people who understand the marketplace and are believers to have greater impact. And that's a little bit about who I am.
Oh, that's great. There's a lot there. Obviously, we can potentially unpack. So, we're grateful for the generational legacy, like we were just talking before, like fathers and mothers passing on what they've known to their children and them taking it and running with it, right? Grabbing the torch. So that's great. The bivocational thing is not like something that's a new concept, right? That's been around for a bit, huh?
Yeah, yeah, it has. So bivocational ministry is something that again has been around forever. Paul did it, and he was one of the first. Actually, Nehemiah building the wall. He was a bivocational leader. Daniel was a bivocational leader. A person that was obviously had gifting and callings from God, but was able to speak into the marketplace. So I distinguish though bivocational ministry from bivocational leadership. So bivocational leadership is actually a term that I made up to capture a different type of really what I call a modern day calling that people can embrace in today. So bivocational ministry is in the past, it's basically a person, when you think of a bivocational ministry, it was a pastor or a minister at a church who maybe their church wasn't large enough to support them financially. So they would get a job outside of work to help pay for or to assist with the financial parts of the ministry. And that job might be anything. They might be a farmer or working at a store or working in corporate, whatever that is. But the thing for the bivocational minister is that their heart really was just for ministry, and they needed to do something they needed to find a career to support them financially. Now, bivocational leadership, which is the phrase that I coined, this is for people who feel like they actually have a calling to operate at high levels in both their spiritual calling and in the marketplace. So they feel like they're called to both. It's not just about the financial incentive, but it's also about, man, I feel like God has crafted me and given me a special designation to do this. And so that's just a little distinction between, again, bivocational ministry and bivocational leadership. And then we can unpack, all of that a little bit later. But again, I define a bivocational leader as a person who feels called to operate at high levels in both their professional career and their spiritual call.
That's amazing. Yeah. So that's, how do you see that? Is that, now you said if somebody that feels that way, do you believe that there's just certain special people that are supposed to do this, or what are your thoughts on like
Yeah.
who's actually supposed to be like, I'm a bivocational leader?
Yeah. So I do feel like people have to be called in order to maintain this certain level of leadership at a high level. But here's the thing: a lot of times, people may have the calling inside of them, but they've never seen anyone or have never heard it positioned in a way where they can know to do both. We people as humans. My background is in just education, and I have a graduate degree in coaching and also a graduate degree in training and performance improvement. But so people can only replicate things that they see. Like if they've never seen anything before, they don't know it's a thing yet. So that's why the Bible gives us the books so that we can have an example and know how to believe for certain things. And I think it's in First Peter where it says that you should mark those who through patience and comfort have inherited the promises. So a lot of times people will have a calling for bivocational leadership, but may not recognize it because they feel like, I mean, they've never really seen an example, and everything that they hear about in the culture says, hey, well, I got to do a grind on the side, or you have to be completely devoted to ministry. If you're not really to devote your life to ministry, then you don't have a calling. Or they in business, they say, well, God has called me to start this business, and yes, I have a desire to preach and share and do some other things, but it's kind of either or. So they've never really understood that there is a bivocational calling where you have accepted that God has given you grace in both areas, and essentially that's really the difference. God has given you grace to operate at high levels in your career and in your work, and it's not something that you are struggling to do. It's not, oh man, I gotta go to work. I want to do work for God, but I gotta go to work today. Or I want to do this for God, but I can't. But no, it's like, no, God has called me to have an impact in my work, and God has given me grace to do both. And again, that's a little bit about my journey. So I'll pause there because I could talk about this for a while. But yeah, to answer your question, I do think there is a specific call, but I think more people will understand it once they are aware that there is such a thing, and that you don't have to your work and your career, I mean your calling, your career, don't have to compete with each other.
Yeah, Arnold, I'd like to chime in on that quickly, just based off of everything that you said. It's a huge encouragement to me, to Mark, I'm sure, and what we do here at Sheep Feast, because that's what we aim to do: provide people tools, resources, be this facilitative or amplifying arm to individuals that don't know what they don't know. A lot of times we feel like we are alone. And so I normally always make a call to action, so to speak, to all the listeners out there. If you're listening to this, this is what it's about: being able to connect with individuals like Arnold, who it's like, wow, there's other people out there. God always has a ram in the bush. He always has 1,000 prophets that did not bow to Baal. He always has these individuals who are waiting, willing to assist in these different areas. So I'm just intrigued to hear more about your story and what you have to offer to us today.
That's so awesome. And so if I could, I did cover this initially, but let me just speak a little bit about how I got here. So again, I'm a preacher's kid. I grew up in a great family, and the thing with me, what the grace and the gift that God gave me is my parents were pastors, but they were, I hate to even say it this way, but like they were the real thing. And essentially what I mean by that is because a lot of times PKs have this experience where, they're growing up in church, they're seeing all these things, but the personal behind the scenes examples that they see, they're like, man, this is not really Christian, and I don't really want that. And so they get turned away because they were exposed to things, and they're like, man, that if this is what it's really like, and they think this is what it's really like. They think like that everybody's cheating, everybody is messing up, everybody is, has these incredible flaws that are hidden. And so it's obvious that they do get turned away. They don't want to be involved with ministry because they don't want to be a hypocrite. They don't want to be a lost. Well, I have the gift that my parents were the real thing. Like the life that they lived in front of us, or the life they lived in church was the life they lived in front of us. So I was able to see that. So it was nothing for me to realize and understand. No, yeah, you can be a man. Again, I'm from old school. I'm kind of old, so we call it being a man of God. Like you can be a man of God, right? You can be. You don't have to be a hypocrite. You don't have to be a fake. You don't have to have all these things going on in the background. And so that was a blessing for me. But anyway, to kind of jump fast, I from an early age understood that I had a calling of God on my life. Now, in that time though, when you felt called, there was only one thing you could be when you have a calling. Growing up, I did. You had to be a preacher. I mean, like if you had any kind of calling, you had to be a preacher. So I was like, okay, well, I'll be a preacher or whatever. But there was a strong sense of call that was on my life. So what I started doing is I started, pursuing that. So from my early years at college, and then after that, for me, it was all about fulfilling my calling. And so I would go and I would get jobs, and I could usually find a job because I had a great character and I had a really good work ethic. But it was just again, it was like the bivocational ministry. I was only doing it to make money. There was no sense of purpose. There was no sense of calling. There was no sense of ordination that I should be in the place that I should be. So that was most of my career. I'm kind of dating myself a little bit, but yeah, I'm a little older than what I look like. So that was most of my career, and so it was only about 10 years ago when I had this opportunity. I was interviewing for a leadership role at my company. And so in my entire career, I mean, I would go after leadership roles, but I could never get them. And so I didn't even really want to go after this role because I was like, man, I was just trying to find out, I was trying to make some money so I can go do my calling. But so there was this role it was a leadership role, and we were in this part of the interview. I was sitting in the office with my VP, and he said, "So, look, Arnold, we got other people going for this job and stuff. Why do you think we should do it?" And at this point, this is not even something I recommend, but this is what I said. Listen, I said, I have a significant life outside of work. I said, I'm a minister. I'm serving people all the time. And I know I can help a lot of people's lives. I can do that same thing here, but you guys got to give me a shot. And then so in a freeze microsecond, after that came out of my mouth, I was like, oh my God, Arnold, why did you say that? Because I was used to keeping my spiritual life and my work life, or my call and my work life, completely separate. Nobody had ever, I had never just in a setting like that, a work setting, expressed this. And then I was like, oh my God, Arnold, what have you done? So to my surprise, the VP who knew me, he said, Arnold, you're a minister? He said, man, that explains it. That's why you're always smiling. That's why you're always joking. That's why you got this great attitude. That makes so much sense. And so, long story short, I ended up getting the role. And then that was like the beginning of my leadership journey in my career on the corporate side, because I was not even intentionally, but I was able to show the alignment between what I'm called to do and the opportunity at work. And that was the first time I did it. So that's how I got started, on this journey. It was I was a person who was not interested. I wanted to keep them separate. But once I did this, then I said, wait a minute, I can leverage this. Now, I still, in my work, I'm not going around, I don't personally today, I don't have any Bible studies at work. I don't necessarily, get on a preaching stool and preach at work, but people know who I am, and people come to me. And it was so funny, my VP, he would send people to me, just to get to know me because of who I was. So again, there's more there, but just an example of when we don't separate our work and our career, the things that God can do. And so that was, again, that was the thing that really kind of changed everything for me.
I love that, Arnold. It's interesting to see people's journeys as God opens their eyes to these type of things. And I've been kind of following this type of conversation for many years. And of course, if you know Os Hillman, that's the whole point. It's faith at work. That's his whole message. And so Jay and I have followed Os for many years, and so, but it's interesting to come across people that oh, I just realized this is a thing. I can I can do this. And that's kind of the question I had earlier about, is this for everybody or special people? But sometimes there's just a timing thing, right? Like you had a whole career going and you were ministering, but then in this moment, God, out of your own mouth, you prophesy it, right? And then things shift. And sometimes that's what it's about, right? God brings us to a moment where we're like, now it's time. Now you're really going to understand your calling. And so it's just a matter of if we're available and willing to step into that, because we have the choice, right, to walk away and be like, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and stay quiet about who I am and just get the paycheck.
No question, no question. And I think and a lot of times that the reason people are like that is because they've seen bad examples. So all right, let me just kind of admit this. in this, it's because we're in this environment, and we got to be vulnerable. We got to tell the truth. So when I first started in my and just in my career, again, I was what I was a committed Christian. Like, again, outside of work, again, I was a leader, a pastor. I was ordained as a deacon, and I was ordained as an elder. And and before this point, later on, like recently, I'm also ordained or as a pastor, and I serve in a pastoral role. But when I first started, even as a committed Christian, when I would be at work and I would see people that would want us, like, they would say, hey, they would find out I was a Christian or something, and they would say, hey man, you want to start a Bible study? And I would run from those people. Again, that's why I said I didn't want to admit it. I would run from the people that wanted to start the Bible study at work. I was like, oh man, they're one of those. But the reason is I saw such bad examples. When I would see these people who would want to, like, hey, let's start a Bible study, they would not be people that I would want to follow in their commitment towards God. And so in my imagination, in my mind, everybody that wanted to do that was crazy and messed up, and I didn't want to follow them. I didn't want to be one of those. I did. So that's what kind of started it for me. And I think it happens for everybody. We've seen these bad examples, and nobody wants to be a bad example. And if every example they have of a Christian sharing their life in the workplace is somebody weird. I'm sorry, just didn't cut myself off. Not only with these people that want to start the Bible study, so I would run from there, but they would be slackers at work. They wouldn't do their job. They'd be trying to not do their work so they could do a Bible study. I mean, I was like, come on, man. Well, I'm not. No, I mean, I'm not doing that. So, I mean, I wanted to have people that had high standards, right? And so that was another thing. And so there was just such bad examples. And so I was like, I don't want to be that example. So I ran away from those people. And again, I'm just kind of, I'm not too proud of that now, but I'm just kind of explaining here's what happened. And I can see how people want to just say, just give me the check, man, and I'll just serve God out here. And some situations like that's even okay. I mean, that's not a bad thing, but to some people, and I think the people that are going to be listening to you guys, this podcast, there's like, I could do that, but I don't want to do that. I believe there's a way to be excellent at work and effective in my calling. I think there's a better option. And so I'm pursuing that. And I think that's why, your people are following you and listening to you today.
Yeah, that's amazing. Dr. J, do you have anything else you wanted to?
Oh, oh yes, this is so good because it's so timely. And Oz also speaks about it as well. Even Brett Johnson, some of the other people, Sean Dunn. You're a Christian and you're at work. However, you're not bringing the spirit of excellence into your job, but yet you want to minister and want people to listen to you and follow you on your job, right? Just this huge disconnect. So I can see someone who understands bringing a spirit of excellence, being who God has called you to be while they're in their career, while you're at your workplace. If someone else who is not doing that and doesn't have that level of understanding is coming to you wanting to do a Bible study or otherwise, probably you may want to run. You know what I mean? Or, if God sets up an opportunity to be able to talk to this person or minister to that person, if that's, what God sees fit, to kind of help them to see how they can, be a better representative of Christ by bringing that spirit of excellence into the job. And sometimes it's just us doing it ourselves, hanging around them, being a light. But I just wanted our listeners to kind of think about that. And maybe you are that person. I know I used to be that person in some areas, because sometimes we think, oh my gosh, my job and what I'm doing is preventing me from doing ministry. So if I can somehow figure out how to work some type of Bible study or something else, then I can get paid on my job to do this ministry thing. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, but so what's really interesting too. So when I've been in my current company again. So I am a bivocational leader there, meaning that it's like, so I'm a pastor outside of work. I'm not the senior pastor at my current co. I'm one of the associate pastors. But so I'm a pastor outside of work. I'm a senior leader in our organization, and I run my coaching business. So what's really interesting is if you start with excellence, and this is one of the things I want to encourage people who are bivocational leaders or who want to be, who feel like they have that calling. I think the place to start is with excellence at work. And what could happen, Dr. J, is that you can actually have opportunities where your job will pay you to serve others, but it can't be your idea. So in other words, I can't start with, hey, I want to take this away from my job. I want to take this time away to, start this Bible study or do this thing and take this time away from work so that I can do, quote unquote ministry or serve other people. But there are opportunities when you are excellent at work that you will get opportunities that to minister. So again, I would have I've had like that VP that I started with. He would say, "Hey man, you need to go talk to Arnold." He would send people to talk to me. In my current role, once I got my coaching certificate. So again, I've been in my company for over a decade, and once I got my certificate, my coaching certification, I was sharing that with my senior director. So this was a couple of years ago, and one of the things that happened is they said, "Well, hey Arnold, man, why don't you reach out to these other?" He had team members in other parts of the world and all over the world, and he said, "Well, why don't you reach out to these team members and actually do some coaching for them and just tell them, that because they're on his team. So tell them, I sent them to you because they could use what you have." So because I was excellent at work, I had my leaders send people to me to do coaching. And now for me, again, for me, coaching is ministry. Now I know again, it's all sorts of ways to do this, but I'm having an opportunity to serve people, to help change perspectives, to change mindsets, to change the way that they think about things. So so my job in this sense, as I was mentoring other leaders and other managers on how to do things well and be able to coach them. So my job actually did send people and paid me to do ministry, but it wasn't because I was stealing from the job. It wasn't because I was taking time away. No, it happened in the course of what I call given the authority to do it. Right. So I'm not taking it. I was given this opportunity, given this authority. And when you have that type of light or that type of opportunity, then your job can pay you to do it. I mean, that's not all they're paying you to do, but they in a sense they are paying you to do it. So I thought it would be an interesting story. I wanted to share that. You said, Dr. J.
100%. There's all kind of things that God can begin to open up to you when you obey and start answering the call, right? Uh, Now we've talked about the spirit of excellence as being a real key to maximizing the impact that you have in your industry and your ministry. What's another key that you like to bring to people's attention to help them do this?
Yeah. There's a couple of things. So one of the primary things that I like to help people who feel this call to bivocational leadership is I like to help them to define their impact, right? And so so I a lot of times you hear some of these words, impact, purpose, all these things. Like we all say, well, like we have a sense of what they mean, and we think that we know what they mean because we've heard them so much. But I like to actually make a distinction between some of these, and I think one of the best ways to understand some things is by comparing it to things that are close, that are close in meaning. So when I think about impact, I like to describe impact along with purpose and then meaning. So here's the way that I define impact. Impact is a measurable outcome executed for a specific purpose to reinforce a significant meaning. Okay, so there's a difference between impact and purpose. There's a difference between purpose and calling. There's a difference between calling and vocation, right? So we have to take some time to kind of look at these things so we're all saying them the same way. So to answer your question, though, some other keys for bivocational leadership, one of the first things is like, what type of impact do you want to make? And so most time when people think about impact, it's like it's this fuzzy word. They're like, yeah, I want to make an impact. Well, how you want to do it? Oh no. Oh no. So again, that's why I describe it. So impact again, it's a measurable outcome executed for a specific purpose to reinforce a specific meaning. So impact is something you starts off. There's three components. There's measurability, there is purpose, and then there's meaning. So if you're going to have impact, you want it to be something that you can measure, right? So I mean, so like, hey, how much impact did you have? Okay, well, so it's something that you can measure. When you speak to your impact, you want to speak to something that you can measure. So let me just give you a kind of a basic, explanation of these three things. So let's say that you wanted to start um, a you wanted to feed some people in a particular neighborhood. So you wanted to, let's say you want to do or in a community, you want to offer 200 meals. So your impact would be, hey, I want to impact 200 people by providing a meal for them. Okay, so that's a measurable thing. Now, but you're doing that impact for a purpose. So purpose is the top of mind reason for why you're doing it. So you might say, okay, man, I know people need food, and so I want to do this impact. I want to feed 200 people because people need food and people are hurting. So that's the purpose behind, that's the top of mind reason. But then there's this idea of meaning. So now meaning is subjective. Purpose, again, measurable is obviously objective because you can measure that. You can objectively measure it. That's how you define the impact. Purpose is sort of the top of mind thing, like a surface answer. Like, hey, here's why I want to do it. That's when I thought about it. Here's why I want to do it. But when you look at the meaning, now this is the deeper thing. So maybe it's like you were poor growing up, and you had opportunities where you didn't have a meal, and so you had the purpose. You just wanted to feed people, and you want to feed these 200 people. But the meaning for you is more significant because you know what it's like to go without some meals unintentionally. You weren't fasting, right? You weren't going on a weight plan, right? You didn't have the meals. So when you look at those three things, you can see, man, when I'm having an impact, you don't want to, the impact you're having is not just because of a top of the mind reason, it's because there's something beneath the surface. So impact is something you can measure, it has a purpose, but really when you look at it all together, it reinforces a significant meaning. And usually that meaning goes back to our identity. There's something about who we are. And so when I'm doing this, when I'm doing certain things, I'm not just doing this because I'm doing certain things. I mean, I might not even realize it, but underneath there, it's reinforcing who I am. Like, I am a giver. I am a person that cares about the community. I am a person that believes God can do incredible things in the marketplace. So your impact usually reinforces something significant about who you are. And when you bring those things together, you have a understanding of what impact truly means for you.
Yeah, what a great explanation of that. Like you said, a lot of times we'll throw around words that we kind of somewhat understand, but having that type of definition really helps us understand what it would mean to make an impact. And like you were just saying, the calling that we have and the meaning are putting together because of how God created us, right? You're
Yeah,
talking about for the people that feel like this is the message for them now. God has built something in you and you are called no matter what, right? But
that's right.
you might not be activated yet, right, into that particular thing. But at some point, God will ask you based on what He's put inside of you and the experiences you have, and He'll give you that opportunity to see it, um, you know, actually put it into action.
100%, 100%. No, and God does have, again, all of us have something to offer. So here's the way that I describe a calling. So again, that's another thing. I was like, what is a calling? So I describe a calling is a spiritual phenomenon where a person realizes that their life is about more than themselves. So let's kind of unpack that for a second. So when you realize that you have a calling, you don't, like, how do you, how do you know you had a calling? Well, what does that mean? But it's something that happened. Like, we think about it in terms of just like a natural thing, but no, it's when God unlocks some understanding that, no, that you have a calling and your life is about more than just you. And that's not just a natural understanding because people, everybody say, well, sure, there's something I'm supposed to do, but it's not clear. When God unlocks that spiritually, and you're like, wait a minute, no, this is a spiritual thing that's happened. Like I don't just want to do this. I feel called to do this. So again, it's a bit of a spiritual phenomenon. So for me, again, I had the advantage of growing up in a church environment. I was in church a lot. Again, my dad's a pastor. So I'm in church, 3, 4, 5 times a week. I mean, just like minimum 3 times a week. And we had long services. Again, I'm old. We had long services. I mean, I was in church a lot. So I had lots of opportunity for God to call me. I mean, if you get what I'm saying, I had lots of
Something different every week, right?
oh man, for sure. But for me, I first knew that I started noticing some things like when I would have understanding around the scriptures that was I'll just say beyond my age. I put it that way. It's just I would have this kind of understanding, and then to be able to speak to certain things about understanding scripture, and I would always want to grow up around adults, right? So when kids may want to be out playing. I did love to play, but I want to sit around and hear what the adults were talking about and hear them talk about, what God's been showing them and those kind of things. And so that was something that kind of gave me a clue. But it really happened in one of the services where I felt like, man, that Lord, I felt a lot God was at, and it's hard to describe this again, where again, it's a spiritual phenomenon. So we're trying to put words to something that is spiritual. And so that's what we're attempting to do. It's not perfect, but I'm just kind of explaining you what it was like. I felt like God was asking me to commit to something greater than what my life was showing me right at the moment. I felt like there was something that God was asking me to do in accepting my calling was to accept the commitment that I needed to live in a different way. So as I pursued my calling, like when I was at college, for instance, and at this point I was, very well understood that God was calling me to things. So like the second week I'm in college, I got involved with a campus ministry, and and I remember this. This was so interesting. When I got to college and I got around this group of people, it was the first time in my life that I saw people my age who were more serious about God than I was. Right. And so because again, I was going for God even as a teenager. I was going for God, but I got to college. I said, wait a minute, man, these people, they're living just like I'm living. They understand the scriptures like I'm living, and they're doing more stuff. So I was kind of impacted. And so it was through this process, this time, it wasn't overnight, but God began to show me, hey, I got to live in a different way. I can't just do so when I'm at college, I mean, I wasn't going out to parties. I wasn't drinking. I wasn't doing all these things. I wasn't having the typical kind of college experience because I was pursuing my calling. So in my college experience, I was setting up uh, uh, um, different chapters of campus ministry. So we had this campus ministry that was growing. My college, man, I was going to other campuses trying to set up other chapters of our ministry. Like that. That was my calling, right? Because what I was doing, I was following through and committing to that calling that God had did in my life, and I was making that calling become clear. I was pursuing that. That's kind of an example of just how you go from having a calling. So it wasn't just that I wanted to do this. I didn't necessarily, but it was because of this spiritual thing that God had did in my life that let me know that my life wasn't just about me. It was about other people. And I had to do something. I had to commit to a certain level in order to realize that.
Yeah, that is beautiful. And I'll give a couple examples from my own life too. Like when I was in college, my senior year, we had, I believe it was the president of Mercy Sips or one of those. We always had a mission week at Liberty University. So beginning of my senior year, and the challenge went out, who would give 2 years of their life to a missions organization? And so I didn't know what that meant necessarily, but I was one of the few people at that time in that service to stand up. I was like, okay, we'll see what that looks like. And so it was interesting that that took place. So it was a kind of an assignment, right? Like, hey, here am I, God, I'll do that. And interesting enough, that's how I ended up, I met my wife, who to be wife, and ended up working for her father in his ministry, a missions organization, right at 2 years, and then the next assignment to come into place. And another piece of the whole calling thing was sometimes it's progressive, right? Like you
That's right.
might, God says a little bit of something, or a little bit about what you're doing, and you're just kind of following the breadcrumbs. Well, it's probably been 10, 12 years ago, maybe more, that the Lord just kind of revealed to me, like, you're created to help people communicate. And it was kind of a aha, but duh moment, because that's everything I'd ever done was about communications and marketing and all those kind of things. But it was like in that moment, that calling and that reality for my life was made clear. And so I think that's something to think about when people are like, what am I called to? Sometimes God will give you a little bit, and then as you move forward, more and more is revealed.
Mark, that is so good, man. And I think another thing that helps with calling, right, is so God created us. He did, like we started off at the beginning. God did not create us to be alone. Okay, and so a lot of times what happens is as we're pursuing our calling, God actually ordains that we would be in community. And ideally, there would be, the Bible tells us that the older women should teach the younger women, right? They're usually people that have gone before us who have been experiencing the faith, and then there's people that we're pouring into, that we're connected with, that we're sharing it to. So in this community is where we're actually are able to receive the calling. So our community helps us to shape that calling. Our community does that. And so one of the things that I know that is true is when you are submitted, right? When you are submitted to um the leadership that God has for your life, whether that's in church or and so if you when you're being discipled in some kind of way, right? When you do that, there is so much safety in that. Now, again, I knew I was called as a teenager, but I didn't just, go out and just call myself a minister. Like I was ordained, as a minister. So in other words, the community that I was living in, they saw my life, and they would hear me talk about that because I would tell them I would feel I was called, but they would say, wait a minute, he thinks he's called, and by the way he's conducted himself, by his character, by the things that we see, we do think there's a calling on your life. So an ordination is somebody beyond you saying, hey, you have I affirm that calling. So in the Bible, the way they would affirm calling is by the laying on of hands. So somebody could just say, hey, I'm an apostle. Well, I mean, I guess, people did that. We can say that. But no, when the apostles would come and they would lay hands. So this is a public confirmation that this calling that you say you have, we see it, we believe it's called by God, and now you can go out in greater confidence in being who you called to be, because you're not just some lone wolf. So the purpose of all that story was to say that your calling is also found in community, and then in submitting yourself. I mean, we have so many people today, it happens in church, it happens in coaching, just, hey, I'm a coach, because I want to be, or yeah, and I mean, that's okay, because that's coaching. But a lot of times I say, I'm a pastor, because I read the Bible last week, and so we got these people who are just with
Self-appointed.
no community, and no community, and I mean, and not to say that could never happen, because Moses didn't have a community, Abraham didn't have a community per se. So Moses did have Jethro, but sometimes you might start by yourself, but there's so much safety in submitting yourself, right? And then not just submitting yourself, but surrounding yourself. So this is what we're attempting to do in this, in this relationship right here. Like, when Mark and I met, I was like, man, there's something about you, man, and we just kind of connected. And so now we got a community too. So it's a horizontal community as well as other things. There's different things, but there's so much safety in that. So I want to encourage just everybody, if you feel like you have a calling, though, you can't do it alone, right? You need community. You need your church. You need a church. Like God set up the church, right? I mean, so and I'm a church guy. So I mean, you need your church. You need your leadership to help affirm who you are and what your calling is. But what happens when you do that? You get to go out in so much more power. You get out in so much more authority. You get to go out in so much more confidence, because this is not just you and some idea that's in your head. You have people that can talk to you, that can encourage you, that can tell you no. All right. They can tell you that's not a good idea. They can tell you that's not the way to say that. They can tell you that's the wrong spirit. You got the right idea, but that's the wrong spirit that you're carrying. And before you can deliver that message, we need to spend some time together and make sure that the spirit of what you're saying is coming out right. Your words are right, but it's not. So all of that happens like in community.
Hey man, you're speaking our language, Arnold. Like I know, Dr. J, I'm sure you're picking up on all these different points that we talk about, whether it's generations, whether it's 1 million discipled, it's all relevant because, going it alone is, you're not going to go very far. Obviously, we need the previous generations, we need the next generation, and that's what we talk about in generations when we're having these conversations is that Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, God's the God of all generations. And there is that synergy, that multiplication effect as we come together in community and bring that wisdom and that knowledge, that anointing. And we talk about Psalm 145, 4, and it talks about telling the stories to their children, right? The glorious things that God has done. And it's really just this, faith building exercise. Like God did that for them. He's going to do it again. It's that whole idea of amen, do it again, Lord. And so I think that's a huge part of what you're just speaking towards. It's coming together in a body, whether it is specifically a church or you can begin to have these kind of things in other parts of society too. We don't have
Absolutely.
to just say, "Hey, that's the point." We're together, right?
That's right. That's right. And the community is so important. Dr. J, are you going to say something? I'm sorry.
No, I was. I'm just waiting. We have a couple of questions in the chat, so
Okay.
we can get to
All
those
right.
Yeah,
at
yeah.
any
If
time.
we want to, yeah, Jay, you want to hit those? I think Anna, maybe the
Sure,
first one
sure.
was kind of answered, but you can go ahead and draw it out.
Yeah. So for our listeners and maybe some individuals, sometimes you have to hear it again, and hear it again. But I know you kind of alluded to and was talking about it earlier, but Anna was asking here in the chat, what was a specific moment that made you realize that you were doing what you were called for, and then also to maybe tack on what message do you have for the next generation?
Oh, that's really good. So your calling is often revealed to you in stages. So God, the thing God created you for, He knows that the end in mind. So He knows ultimately what you're called to do. But God reveals it to us in stages, and we go from ankle to knees to waist to shoulder, right? So we go level by level, moment by moment. So the first idea that you may have a calling, again, I define calling as a spiritual phenomenon where a person understands their life is about more than themselves. So maybe the first thing, that the first specific moment is, man, you preferred somebody over yourself. You're like, man, and you're like, man, why did I do that? You just felt like I wanted to do that. And in the natural, it doesn't make sense. And it's so awesome how God, it seems to always kind of go against some of these natural inclinations, and not in them, but God created the natural stuff. So what I'm saying is, like, you may have it's natural to want to take care of yourself first, right? But when what we know that Jesus came to serve, and so He came for us and for the disciples, so He would pour into them. And so it might start with just you noticing, man, there's something. Why did I want to do that, and why did I care about that? And so that's the insight. That's it. God is tapping at the door. Then as you begin to follow that, God will reveal more and more. So again, in my case, I felt God had a calling on my life, and I had some evidence from how I understood the scripture. So one of the things I was doing as a teenager, I was leading Bible studies. So the fact that people my age would want to listen to me teach them the Bible, that's like a clue. I mean, but just a clue. So I went from, hey, I think there's more, and then we had another step. And then, as I mentioned, when I got to college, and I saw these other serious Christians around me, these other people my age that were serious about God, as I became a part of this campus ministry, in the first 3 months, I started being in a leadership role. So here's like another step. So again, so this leadership group that I submitted myself to, they said, Arnold, I think you should do this because you have a bigger goal. So now there's another step. And then I become faithful in that ministry. And then at the same time I was doing the campus ministry, I was involved in my local church. So again, I was ordained as a deacon later on. So now I got more of a calling. I think I'm called. My teenagers, people are listening to me. Among my peers, they think there's something I have to offer. And now a church or eldership said, hey man, this young man is called, and I get ordained. So it's a progressive opportunity. So yeah, it may be, sometimes there is a moment, but more than likely, there's going to be several moments that reinforce, hey, here's what God has asked me to do. And again, that's why we need community, because sometimes it might be a moment that somebody else sent you. And so God has put some community around you to say, oh, that moment, we need to readjust it this way. Here's how you interpret that. So long answer. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that was awesome. And then encapsulating all of what we've been listening to in this Corral Call, what message would you have to say to the next generation? Because I think a lot of times we're looking for this big moment. Oh, I'm called to do the, you know what I mean? So yes. To the next generation, what would what would your message be to them?
So because we're in this environment, I want to take a different approach with how I would answer that. And I want to say this to the next generation. You guys need to be disciples. And so let me explain what discipleship, is, right? So, discipleship is not spooky. It's not this, it's not, and it's not this like, where somebody comes and just like hovers over you and just, oh, I think I'm going to disciple you and you're going to follow me and you're going to live like, no, discipleship is, first of all, you can pursue discipleship. You can, if there are people in your life that live godly and they are mature and they live what they say. I mean, those are some people, man, follow after those people. But discipleship is actually, it's a process where both you and the person that is discipling you have an understanding that you are attempting to grow into an area that you haven't grown before, right? And it's not scary to be discipled. Like, you want to be discipled, right? Because what happens is you get to benefit from the experience of people that have gone before you, and when you're a disciple, I mean, almost every time there's a discipleship situation, there are doors that will be open for you. A person they can open doors for you. They can open opportunities for you. They can speak into you. You don't have to do it by yourself. So I want to encourage the next generation is to get discipled and to like pursue people that again, people that are godly, it's interesting. I had this realization just recently. When I say recently, again, I'm old, so when I say recently, this could be 6 years ago, man. That's what happens when you get older, man. We're recently not to. This was years ago, but I had this understanding where, like, a lot of people have never met a person of God. I can say it this way. A lot of people have never met a real man of God. I can say it this way. A lot of people have never met a real Christian. And essentially what I mean is, so like everybody thinks, particularly like if you watch movies and you get involved in entertainment, you think that like everybody has like this major flaw, because that's how they show it to the movies. Like, so now none of us are perfect. None of us are perfect, but everybody is not living in a way that is beneath a standard, right? Everybody is not a hypocrite. There are people that are living everything that they know, and they don't, they're not cheating on their wives. They're not, they don't have a drug problem on the side. They don't have a porn problem on the side. Now, and none of those are disqualified. I'm just saying that there are people that are living in a way that their public face or their private face matches their public face. Okay, so I want to encourage you to find people. There are people that you can respect, that you can live up to, but you got to find them there. But they're there. Once you know they're there, you can look for them and you will find them. And I'm going to, by the grace of God, just kind of say this here, and I do this kind of stuff in fear and trembling. But man, like like I am a person that lives what I, talk about. Am I perfect? No, but like I'm going to say, like I'm one. And I know lots of, okay, you forget me. I know lots of other. I'm close to people that are living a real disciplined character, God following life. No, they're not perfect, but they don't have these things, right? So everybody's not crazy. Everybody doesn't have these major flaws. So that's kind of my encouragement, because a lot of people have never even been around somebody like that. And again, I happen to know many people like that, but my mom was one, my dad was one. They were real, what I just call, like use the term, but they were like a real Christian. Right? So anyway, that's my encouragement. I just want to take a little different kind of perspective there.
Yeah. Thanks, man. That's good. I love that, Arnold. And this has been an amazing time. And you know what? I'll steal a line from my pastor. You want to take Arnold home with you? Good news, you can. He's got some amazing resource. You can come and look at this right here. So
Yes.
his website, coacharnoldmurray.com. If you take that out, there's a faith-driven leader guide, right, Arnold, that you can
Yes.
go and
Yes.
download that, get more information. Probably a lot of great information here that connect with him.
Mark, now that you mentioned that, though, I'm glad you mentioned that. So I actually have a special offer for all of the people that are connected with you guys. So like on that page, you don't have to click on it, but if you click on the offers thing there at the very top, it says
Yeah,
offers. So I have a course that's called the Impact. We talked a little bit about Impact today,
yeah.
but I call it the Impact Blueprint course. This is a course for that shows you how to find and establish your impact. This course I sell this course for $97, but I have a special discount code for everybody that's a part of Sheep Fest today. So if you come here and when you click, don't do it now, but when you click on that enroll button, it'll take you to the checkout page. And if you put in the discount code SheepFest, you're going to get $87 off and be able to have this course for $9.99.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so that's something special that I wanted to offer this particular group, because I know you guys care about disciples here in discipleship, and you care about the next generation. You care about moving people forward. So I wanted to make that offer available. This course is a great course and has all sorts of great modules in it, and you can complete this course in not just a couple of hours, right? But it's something that will teach you what your impact, how to discover what your impact is, and how to live it out and kind of get you started on that journey. So again, the discount code, you can come right to the site. The discount code is SheepFest, all one word.
Good, good, good. Awesome. Now I want to make sure Sheep Fest is one thing. Sheep Feast is our name. So is it F
Sheep
E?
Feast. I'm sorry.
It
I
is
have it
okay.
right. It's Sheep Feast. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
okay,
Thank you.
cool.
It's
We
Sheep
get
Feast.
that. We're all about a good, we're all about a good festival. That's party time.
It
Uh,
is Sheep Feast. That's the discount code.
oh, we love
FEA.
that. That's so generous, Arnold. We appreciate you making that available. We'll have to make sure that gets dropped in our community. We'll put that in our resource tab for our Sheep Feast folks. And yeah, this has been a great conversation. Like I said, there's so much more Arnold has to offer. Check that website out. And Arnold, any kind of last words before we kind of end our time today?
Thank you. One thing I would like to just make other request. I have a newsletter that's on Substack. I would love for everybody to join my newsletters. It's again, you can also sign up for it there, but it's I do that. The thing I want to leave is I just want to say how important it is again to have community, and a lot of times you don't notice what you need until you start putting yourself out there. Like it wasn't until I decided to start my coaching business and put myself out there that I was able to meet people like Mark and meet Dr. J, right? So I just want to encourage everybody, listen, to have a community of people that you can go to and that can hold you accountable, right? They can challenge you. And the reason you think about accountability this way, you're not being held accountable because you can't do it. People hold you accountable to something that they believe you can do. Okay, so that's just my encouragement for you. You need some people that can keep you accountable, that can keep you move forward, and can encourage you. And I'm one of those people as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Arnold. For everybody that's been with us today, appreciate you. If you're watching this later, yeah, thanks for supporting and being part of the Sheep Feast community. Keep your eyes out for future announcements regarding generations and take advantage of what Arnold has so generously given us today, a great discount on his program. So until next time, we will see you guys at the Corral Call next week. Thanks.
You later.